anything that was divorced from that, they were afraid that it wouldn't succeed. You had the UHF channels that you needed a box for, and you had the VHF channels. Nothing could be more unattractive for diversity and choice and all that kind of stuff. So Steve fought this at the commission, and the commission's attitude was, you have to license the dishes, they have to be 10 meter, 9 meter, and the signal's got to be perfect. It's a passive device, it's not transmitted. He turned that around, got the 4.5 meter dish, and when we started as a network in 1979, there were only 150 of them out there in the country. There were only about 3 million people you could serve with these dishes at that point. I mean, that's how tiny this is. Our base right now is 90 million homes. That's how far it's come since 1979. You know, you all have all these things we're talking about, and you kind of say, I don't really care about television anymore. I'm on the internet. I've got my iPod and all this stuff. But it had to start somewhere. It had to start somewhere to break this up, because the monopoly, oligopoly was so strong that if you wanted to start something and change something, you had no choice. If I wanted to do the kind of programming we do at C-SPAN, which is a nonprofit company, we don't make money from anybody. We're a cooperative of the cable television industry. They started it, private industry, not the government. There's no government money in it. You had no chance. You had nobody would pay. You walk into a television station and say, I want to do some public affairs, I want to do some hearings from Congress. They look at you like you were mad. And they say, you know, are you out on the day pass today? Can we help you out? And the attitude all the way through the government process was, let's keep it like it is. Let's don't open this thing up. Because this is safe and this is working and we've got control. C-O-N-T-R-O-L. Control is one of my favorite words in Washington, D.C. People that live here want to control their political lives, they want to control their business lives, and it's an obsession. And then they look across the country and say, well, we got to keep control of the communication system. You see that right now with the internet. In your lifetime, again, the Congress will try to regulate the internet. Because for all kinds of reasons, they'll say pornography is bad for children and all the stuff. You know, I mean, you've heard all the arguments, and they're fair arguments, but do we really believe in a First Amendment? Do we really believe in the marketplace being the decision maker? Do we really believe that we ought to have the kind of freedom to listen to whatever we want to listen to? Where does it cut off? And these issues still, I mean, it's amazing how open this process is today. There's still major issues. So Steve was successful with the 4.5 meter dish. We could see that this thing was going to spread. The cable television industry was looking for new programming. And one day at the Mayflower Hotel, 40 cable television operators called a meeting and they invited anybody that had an idea. This was a fascinating day. I wish I recorded it that day. I wish I had more information on who was in the room. And there was a guy that was in the group that knew that I've been talking about what I wanted to do for years. And you know, they go, oh, nice little guy. And he's got a wonderful idea. And I worked for a guy in Indiana for a while as a consultant there in cable television systems. And he used to say to me, he owned television stations. He said to me, I love the guy, he's a friend, and he died last year. He said to me, if we program this television station with your interest in mind, I'd go broke. Because public affairs is not a big seller. You know, hearings and all that, there's only one Watergate hearing. You know, we covered 2,000 hours of hearings a year, and these folks that ran these television stations knew what they had to do to make money, and that's why they're in the business. If there's one word that is important in understanding all this, it's M-O-N-E-Y. I've come to personal philosophy after 40 years in this town is that money is absolutely everything. That even though there are good people here motivated for good reasons, that when it all gets down to it, it's about money. Who controls the money? Where does it go? Why does it go there? And that's the same thing with industry. It's the same place. And it's the same thing when they sit at the Federal Communications Commission. They look at the money. Again, what I've learned in all these years is that they don't want anybody to fail. Anybody that's really trying to make money. Well, when C-SPAN started, 1979, moving into the next area that I mean, the first story was about Tom Whitehead and the difficulties of getting a satellite up there and getting the price down to where we could afford it. The second experience that has nothing to do with the regulatory system. It has something to do with what you run into on Capitol Hill when you try to work the Capitol. And you try to work inside the system. The thing I learned early is that if you're not of them, you're not of them. You're an outsider. No matter whether you're doing what they might think is good work by putting them on television, you're still outside the club. And right after we started, what you ought to know is that they're not our cameras in the house. We wanted to put our own cameras in. They said, no, we'll put our cameras in. And at early days when we started, we just transmitted what was given to us from the floor of the House of Representatives, and we only had 8 hours a day. We were surrounded on the same channel with Madison Square Garden Sports at night. And within a very short order, we got ourselves in trouble when the people that owned the channel, a great guy, it was still a very close friend of mine, and he was our first chairman, a guy named Bob Rosengrant. But he had a company, and a woman who ran the company, Kate Koplowitz, very public-minded, public-spirited, but she said one day, she called up, I'll never forget this, it was like the day from hell. She said, we're going to preempt you tomorrow for the NBA draft. So you can imagine the Congress is used to us televising every day to these several million homes out there. And Kay says, sorry, it's just business, but we're going to preempt you. And I knew the minute that day happened that we were in serious trouble on a long-term basis because it was going to get worse and worse. And we had to have our own channel up there. We were being able to buy the time at $100, and it's all the details of it you don't care about, but I saw this was nothing but trouble. But anyway, when we first started, we were only in business a couple months. We had 4 people working at C-SPAN. We now have 260. We had a budget the first year of $480,000. We now have a budget of $55 million. We had 3 million homes that we were connected to. We now have 90 for the first network, 90 million. We have 80 million for the second network, and probably 12 million for the third network. We have 3 full-time, 24-hour-a-day channels. And I ran into what I was warned about, and I cannot believe how it came true. It came true in spades, that, and I've always believed this very strongly, that you cannot mix government and media. And when you try to mix government and media, especially if government gives you money, they're going to start to want to control it. They're going to start to want to tell you how to do your job. Well, we didn't have any government money involved in it, but right after the first couple months, I get a phone call that I'm not going to use his name because I don't want to, he's had enough trouble in his life. Congressman from, who is the Speaker of the House's chairman for broadcasting. He was responsible for the cameras operating in the chamber. Tip O'Neill was the speaker. And one day I got a call and they said, Congressman X would like to see you. And by the way, when you come over, bring all the letters you've received from the public. And I thought, no, wait, no, this doesn't work. Somebody sent us a letter, an independent company, a private company, we're a journalism operation. The last thing I want to do is turn over the addresses and everything to this congressman. It's none of his business. So what I did was, I brought the letters and I took the names off. I didn't want him to send them a letter and say, if you were a private citizen, you sent it to a private company, the last thing you want is the member to come back saying, can we know more from you? We want to see how this operates. That didn't make him very happy. And he had an assistant, we'll say Assistant X. Assistant X was very much disliked by everybody working with the Congress from outside. Very, very much disliked. Very, very difficult human being. And I'm going to tell you more than you want to know, but I told the people in the office, I said, if I come to see Congressman X, I don't want Assistant X to be there because it's always contentious. It's always a problem. Well, when I showed up, Assistant X was there. And after the meeting was over, and here's what he proposed, and here's what I want you to know, because this is something the public doesn't know about, and that you don't go out and tell them on television about this. He said, I'd like to have my own program on C-SPAN. every week. We could use my cameras that he controlled in the house recording studio that was government taxpayer supported. And after the week's over, I'll just sit there with some of my friends in the house and all this stuff, and we'll talk about what happened during the week, and we'll give you what you need, because we were just running the house at that time. Congressman X and Assistant X were there, and I can tell you, I didn't know what to do. I mean, there's no way I was going to let that happen. And I said to them, I'll tell you what, we'll consider it if you put a Republican across the table from you, so we have some balance in this. Well, they didn't want to do that. That was not any of interest to them at all. So after this meeting was over, I said to Congressman X, I would like to talk to you alone. And this person left the room, the assistant, and I said, look, you and I have always gotten along. We're getting a little territory here that's difficult. But I just want you to know, I do not want to deal with your system anymore because it's too difficult. It's too difficult. Well, he said, nodded to me, and I left the room. And a couple of weeks later, he married her.
You matchmaker.
Think about it. He kept us off. This is not an exaggeration. He kept us off of the house cable system for 7 years. You could not watch C-SPAN in any congressman's office for 7 years. We tried everything under the sun to get around that. But what you find out about Capitol Hill is these little fiefdoms, you can't get around them because they protect each other. It ended up 7 years later that Tom Foley, he was the majority leader at the time, figured out some scheme, along with Bob Michael, the Republican leader, and they figured out some scheme to get him to back off of all this. But in the interim, what he did was he walked around Capitol Hill putting the bad mouth on everybody he talked to, that I was partisan, that I was difficult, that I wouldn't help him, and all this kind of stuff. Meanwhile, you aren't going to believe this, George Mason comes into this again. He tries to get a television station, licensed to the Congress, that he can control, that will put the House of Representatives on, so again, he can have his own show. And then this would be here in the local area and be on all these cable systems around town. So, a young man named Mike Kelly, professor of medieval English at this university, a wonderful character, somehow or another, on his own, had kind of sniffed around this problem and came to me and said, what if I try to get a couple of channels, the ITFS, the other kind of technology, you put up a stick and you can hit, it's line of sight, and you can hit dishes around the area. Do it from the top of the building we were in right over here. And I said, that's great. We'll do a contract with you. You can be a private deal. You can be associated with George Mason. Mike Kelly is one of the most ingenious characters I've ever met. He got approval, a license, at the Federal Communications Commission in 29 days. The law says 30. He got it before, and he got it by just shoe leather. He just went down there, and we were involved in it behind the scenes, and did everything we could. So here you have, you can see what's developing here is a wonderful relationship between me and Congressman X. I'm in great shape. He goes to the Judiciary Committee on Capitol Hill and tries to get the Judiciary Committee to copyright and to charge us a fee. My own industry is going crazy because they think this relationship is creating nothing but tension between the Capitol and me and the industry. Whatever you want to say about this, the good news or the unfortunate news about it is he stubbed his toe. He borrowed money from his own campaign. He was reprimanded by the House of Representatives. He had to leave, and he's been gone for 10 years at least. And in the end, thanks to people up there, the process opened up. But that was, for me, a very difficult 7 years. He made my life miserable because people in my own industry were doubting what I was telling them about the relationship and why this was happening. And that's something